Alright guys, when you first open up Xpression, you'll be greeted with this window right here. I'm going to go ahead and kind of get you familiar with the user interface and the layout so you kind of know where everything's at and how it's built. I'm going to go over, there's two main sections in Xpression. There's a layout mode, and then there's a sequencer mode. So the layout mode here is what we'll start in first. This is essentially where we build scenes and build different graphics and such. And the sequencer is what we use when we actually operate and trigger graphics live. Alright, so in this layout we have our toolbar up here. We have our main viewport where you can see everything where your graphics are. We have the scene manager, which holds all our scenes and files. We'll go over that in just a second. We have our object library where we can add assets into our viewer. We have the object manager, lets us see all our layers and groups and all that good stuff. Then we have the object inspector where we can change all the attributes of certain items that we can put in through the object library. So let's kind of go ahead and start going through this and get started. Over here in our scene manager, this is kind of like the looks you have for each thing you want, and this can be any composition made up of anything you want. You can view these scenes via thumbnails here. We can make new scenes. We can even do list view here if we would rather have that. I like the thumbnails personally. So I'm going to go ahead and delete these two extra ones here. Just hit delete. I'm going to rename this. We're going to call this lower third V1. Alright, so we're going to just make a simple lower third graphic for something like news or a talk show. I'm going to add a primitive section here. I'm going to add just a rectangular box. It's 2D. Xpression calls this a quad. There's also 3D objects like spheres, cubes, cylinders, all that good stuff. Back we can kind of see those right there. So anything you can design can be built right in Xpression. I'm going to delete all those. We're going to add our quad here, and you'll see our quad pops up here, and here's the attributes for it. You'll notice it doesn't have any color attributes or anything like that. We'll hit on that later. Right now it's just a transparent box representative of the checkerboard pattern here. So I'm going to go ahead and rename this. This is our object manager where we can see our layers. I'm going to go ahead and rename this just background box. And just a quick note, Xpression does true 3D lighting. So this, you'll see this directional light here. That's what's actually illuminating the source right here. If we turn this off, you can see the opacity drops there. 99% of the times you'll always just leave this as is the default. Alright, so we got our background box layer. But I'm not happy with how that looks. I want that to be a little bigger. So I can go over here and adjust and type in the width. I'm going to go 900, I think. We're actually going to squash down the height a little bit here too. And all this can be changed in the quad option right here. Also, we can also grab tools in the toolbar. So right now I have our selection tool selected. I can also select our scale tool and pull this off. I can grab this whole, I can grab this section right here, pull it all together, move it around how I want to. Or I can grab just one axis and change just one side of it. So I'm going to grab that. That looks probably pretty good. Maybe squash it just a little bit. Let's try that. Alright, now we can actually move this tool if we go to the transform. Change the position, the Y, the Z, all that good stuff. Or the faster way is to go to our move tool up here, select it, and the same way we use the scale tool, just simply drag and drop this freeform. Alright, so I'm going to put it right there in our little title safe zone right there. Alright, so now we probably need to add some color to this to make it look a little better. So I'm going to go to what we call our material manager. You can find it here, or you can usually find it here in the side panel here with the groups. If you don't see that, you can just go to display material manager right there, or Control M, or the hotkey on the keyboard on the top. Alright, so what I tell people usually is objects are like blank walls in a house, and the materials are kind of what the wallpaper is on that wall. And this wallpaper can consist of colors, gradients, textures, image files, video files, anything you kind of want to put on. So each of those looks is set up in the material manager. So I'm going to right click in this grid, press new, material. So we'll generate our own inside Xpression. I'm just going to call this one blue. We're going to grab our color picker here, drag our circle to blue, and we can see our preview right here. That's just a simple blue color. Hit OK. Now this doesn't apply it to whatever object you have, so I'm going to double check the box here, double click the material, and it adds it right there to it. Now what we want to do is maybe add some text on top of this. So I'm going to grab our text object. You'll see this little text box pop up here. Type in first, last, name. And just the same attributes and the same style we use for the box to control things, we can use for the text as well. So I'm going to go and grab this text, move it down here. Now, I don't really like that font. So what I'm going to do is go to our Scene Font tab in our inspector window. Grab that, and I'm going to change the name of this. This will be our lower third head. This will be V1. All right, I don't really like this font though, so let's change it. Let's go something a little bolder. Let's scroll through here. Maybe select Impact. That's a nice big bold font. So here's our new Impact font. We'll go and select Control A to select all the text. I'm gonna bump that size up just a little bit. Move that there. Maybe just the kerning just a bit. Okay, so we're happy there. I'm gonna keep it as white for now, but if you want to change it to black, all you need to do is select the face tab right here, edit material, change this text to black. But I'll keep it white for now. So this is all we need to create a real simple lower third. So now we'll jump into the second part of Xpresssion, which is called the sequencer. So I'm gonna right click in this scene, press to sequencer. All right, now since we need to get out of our building mode or our layout mode, we'll go into our operating mode or the sequencer, F3 and F4. All right, so this is the sequencer. We're going to go ahead and add a few more things for you guys. I'm going to add a thumbnail. I'm also going to add a countdown tab. And I can move these tabs around to my heart's content. Push that thumbnail up a little bit. Scene file. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and save our project. Make sure you save your projects very often. All right, so I'm going to go over kind of what the sequencer is. It's not too complicated, but there's a few things you kind of need to understand to get going. So we have our imported graphic here. You can see that thumbnail previews just matched this scene file. And you still have access to all your scene manager files in this tab. This doesn't change by default. So our scene here, the sequencer creates what we call take IDs. And these are simply just copies of the scene file. So this is take ID 2, and this is how you recall using the numpad. And for other more advanced stuff we'll get into later. The name of the scene file will go here. This is the contents of what it's wherever we typed in that lower third. You can see it's first last name. What it does, how it comes on air. So it's going to cut in and cut off. So it's on layer 0 and output 1. And this is a 2-channel system, so I can actually change which side I want the output I want this to be on. Right now we'll just keep it on frame buffer 1. You can see that in your bottom left. Alright, so to take this on air, I'm simply just going to hit the enter key or the take on. And there's our graphic. You see it just popped on right there in your bottom left. And that's really all it takes. So just real quick, we'll hit a few things in here so you know. If we want to change that transition to a dissolve, I'll select our take ID, go to transition, hit dissolve, make that 15 frames, I'm going to have a fade. On the out, I'm also going to fade. I'm going to do this one for 20 frames. I'm going to take it offline, hitting our take offline key at the top right of our keypad. Alright, I'm going to hit enter again. You'll see it dissolves on and dissolves off when I hit take offline. And there's all kind of cool different effects you can do up in here. Cut and dissolve are probably the two most frequently used in professional applications though. Alright, so now let's change this to frame buffer 2. Frame buffer 2, double click. It'll take it onto our channel 2 as well. And these channels can work completely independent of each other. Alright, so now we have our first lower third in here. We're pretty happy, but often in shows you have more than one lower third. So, easy way to do this is the sequencer. You're going to right click, press duplicate. I'm going to make 2 copies of this. Hit OK. And it's automatically made 2 more copies of the same scene file I've done. Same look, same text, blue box, white text. But you'll see it's created 03 and 04 on the take IDs. So we have 3 different lower thirds. Well, obviously these probably need to be 3 different people for doing a show. There's 3 different types of data sources and Xpression you can use to populate your graphics. We're going to go down here to the template data. I'll show you those. The first thing we have is what Xpression calls a static. This is just simply whatever text you type in this box right here shows up on the third. So you can see that string of text right there shows up. We have what's called a data link, which I'll get into a little later. And then we also have a widget tab. And these 3 can drive any input of data that Xpression gets spit out. So I'll hit these 2 a little later. We'll just kind of talk about the static now to get you started. So simply just type in first, last. That's our first one. So we'll type in, our next person will be Awesome. Now we need to have another person in our show. Try that. Awesome. All right, so now what we've done is create 3 different lower thirds. Same look, but with different names in them. And these are all still referencing this one scene file here, you can see. So with this, what we can do is change our look in the scene file manager, and actually will update all of these graphics in the same manner. So just show, we'll go right click, edit scene and layout, Control E. So I'm gonna actually go and change this text, change it to black. All right, that looks good. We go back to our sequencer. And if you'll notice, if we update these, all these lower thirds now are black. Now let's go back to our data sources, our statics. So we have our statics here. We can just type in anything we want to. We can see our contents right there. I'm going to go and talk a little bit about the widget tab. So what a widget tab is used for is to render out things that are in real time that you wouldn't want to type in. Things like clocks, timers, countdowns, and those sort of things. So in order to add a widget, we need to actually jump back into our layout mode. Go to display, widgets. We're going to add a new widget up here. I'm going to say we're going to add a clock timer. And right now it defaults to a real-time clock, so it's just whatever your computer time clock is, it'll match it. You can right click, go to properties. You can change this to a timer, start and stop times, how many seconds, how many minutes, how many hours. You can change all this good stuff. We'll go back to real-time clock for now. Hit OK. We'll go back into our sequencer. I'm going to take this second lower third here. Let's actually make this a widget. So that text can actually be driven by this widget data. We go to our clock timer 1. And if you'll notice, our preview shows up, and that's our timer right there. So if I take this online, we can change this to frame buffer channel 1. I'm going to double click this, and you can see there in your left that our timer is fully running with real-time data from the clocks. So this is how you do something like a countdown, see what time it is, or if you're on a game show, doing a game show countdown of the contestants. All right, so now we got the hang of that. Let's go and build some more graphics. So in a lot of shows, you'll have what we call a bug in the graphics department. That's usually the logo that sits right here in the frame, or maybe even right here, really anywhere. That's just the little watermark you can see throughout the game. So let's go ahead and make one of those for us. So we'll make a new scene. We're going to right click, rename this bug, hit enter. So in order to have an image on here, we need to make a box for it to live in, also called a quad. We're going to leave this size here for now. I think that'll be okay. Let me move it up here. So to make a new image, what we're going to do is go to our material manager. We're going to right click, press new, press image this time. We're going to go find our image here. So right now I grabbed our bug image. This is a PNG, so it's got an alpha channel. We'll rename this bug back plate. I'm going to double click this bug image. Hey, and look, we got ourselves a bug. So I'm actually going to scale this down a little bit. Going to move it over here in the corner. And that looks pretty good. But most logos you see actually have a little bit of transparency. They're not usually that bright and bold. So I might go out here to our alpha section. Go ahead and type in here. I'm going to type in 50, hit enter. And you can see the bug kind of gets a little transparent, so you can still see what's going on behind it. All right, so now we have this. We're going to press 2 sequencer. Go into our sequencer section. And we can see our bug right there. I'm going to actually drag this down. And since we're having more than one asset collected here, I'm actually going to take this, take all these lower thirds, I'm going to right click, press color. I'm going to make these yellow. I'm going to make this bug orange. So that way we can distinguish what's what just by looking at our sequencer. So automatically know that this is different than this. Also helpful with the thumbnails. Alright, so we have our timer here going in channel 1. And you'll notice my bug is also in frame buffer 1. So let's see what happens when we take it. So we have something that's on the same channel. It seems to be taking that one on and off. But what if I would like those to be on at the same time, because they're not stepping on each other in different spots of the graphic? The way you can do this is actually with your layer mode. So right now these two items, these two take IDs, are on the same layer, so it's clearing out each other. So what I can do is actually put my bug on layer 1, and layer 1 is going to be right above it. So if you'll notice, look in channel 1, our timer's running. I'm going to double click the bug, And look, the bug pops up and doesn't affect the other graphic. You can actually see right here in our output that the lower third is on this layer and our bug is on this layer. So this is a way you can use like a one-channel system to do a lot of different graphics and really utilize the resources Xpresssion can help you with. Alright, so now we kind of hit layers, we're actually going to jump back into our sources again. So we have our widget, our static, and we also have what we call data link. But basically what data link does is it takes external sources from Xpresssion like spreadsheets or scoreboards and lets you import that data and drive graphics from that data. So we're actually going to touch that a little later in the support section, so stay tuned for that. So now we have a bug in our project. We also have our lower thirds here. Let's make maybe an image file. That'd probably be the last thing we'll need for like an award show or a talk show. So let's make a new scene manager. We're going to call this will be our images. A common term for this in graphics worlds are called full screens because they cover the entire screen of the image. So we're going to grab our trusty quad here. We're actually going to change this to 1280 by 720, our project file size. We'll call this full screen backplate. Alright, so right now we have no images right here loaded up. So what we can do, go to materials, I'm going to right click, press new image, and we'll load up another image file here. Load up these right fast. Alright, so now if we want to have an image, all we do is select our full screen backplate, double click the image file in our material manager, and there it goes. We're going to press 2 sequencer, go to our sequencer. We can see our full screen pops up right there. I'm going to go ahead and change this color to purple so we can still see it. And this is going to be channel 2, I think. So I'm going to clear all my outputs for our full screen on channel 2. So there's our full screen, and we can still have our lower thirds come up as we need it to on channel 1. This is a pretty common setup for graphics, just to have channel 2 as your full screen things, and then channel 1 is your bugs, your fonts, lower thirds, that kind of stuff. So let's say you bring in talent or your producer wants a lot of different pictures to show live on the air. So we'll jump back into our layout mode. So what we can do is grab our full screen graphic, duplicate it, rename this to number 1, go to our full screen backplate, go to materials, double click on number 1, hey look, there it is. We can press 2 sequencer, and we can load that up. But there's actually a better way to do this. So if you remember, all of our lower thirds here populated from a single scene file here. But you can see there's no option for us to change the picture with this setup by default. So what we'll do is actually delete this because we don't need it. Go back into our layout mode, delete this whole scene file. So in order for the sequencer to be able to change things based on different take IDs, you have to do what we call publishing an attribute. So I'm going to grab our full screen here. I'm going to grab our backplate quad. Go over here to our inspector, hit template links. And you notice this little publish object is not turned on. I'm going to click this on, and you'll see this little item, all the attributes that can be modified within the sequencer pop up here. And we can just check box anything we want to. So I'm going to go ahead and select position, rotation, scale, and I think that's all I'm going to grab for now. So if we go back into our sequencer now, we can grab our full screen take ID right here, and you'll notice we now have the option to change that quad in the sequencer. So I'm going to twirl this down with the plus here. We can go to material face, and we can now change this to anything we want to. We also have the ability to change the scale, rotation, and position of this quad based on this sequencer. So what I can do now is press duplicate, make 2 copies. So this one's still 1. I'm going to change this one to 2 now, and this one to 3. So now what we have is the same full screen graphic that's pulling from this scene file, but we can modify what source file it's pulling from on each individual take ID in the sequencer. And we can even change things like the scale. So let's take 2 here. Let's do 0.5, 0. Let's do the same thing on the Y. And you'll see it shrunk it with the scale there. But it's not affected my other graphics here. So you can change the attributes of just one thing in each sequence or take ID without affecting the other ones. So let's go for fun. Let's go grab 3. Let's change the rotation of that to 45. You can see it's changing it in 3D rotational space. But it's still not affecting my number 1 or my number 2. So this is how we can set up stuff like pictures, that one may be from a professional camera, the one may be from an iPhone shot upside down, one may be from Instagram, it's not sized right. So we can still have the same plane, but we can change the scale, readjust everything, make it look nice how we want to. So now that you can understand that, and how we can change full screens, we actually can use the same setup to change graphics on our lower thirds even if we wanted to. So let's go back into our scene. Let's grab our background box layer here. Let's grab our template links. We're going to publish that. And you see our material option now shows up. So let's go to our materials. Let's make a new material. Let's call this one just red. Make it red. Enter. So now we have multiple materials now. Let's go back into our sequencer. Let's say our clock right here. Take that on. Let's say since it's a clock, we don't want to look like the talent lower thirds, but we want the same box. Let's make that red. So if you notice back here, background box, material face, our material manager now shows up here. And we can double click red. Same look, same everything, but now this one's just red, not affecting the other two. But say the producer says, no, I want black text now. Okay, no problem. So we'll right click on this. Go back to our font here, just to prove everything's linked up. Change that back to black. Go into our sequencer, take everything offline, re-update it. And look, black, but this one's still red, this one's still blue. Alright, so this is kind of the basic setup of how you do something like a talk show. So let's get just a little more in depth, a little more fancy with it. So I'm actually going to show you guys this grouping section too. Yeah, notice we have this group right here. I'm actually going to change this one to version 1, since it's version 1 of our talk show. And we actually twirled on this whole group, and this is how you can keep things nice and tidy. You can do different groups. You can say all your lower thirds can be in a group, and all your full screens can be in another group, anything you want to organize. Go back to our layout. Let's make one maybe a little more complicated with our lower third. So let's say you have a logo for your show, but you also want to have your lower third. You want to be a little more involved than just this box graphic. So let's go ahead and make something new. New scene. We're going to call this lower third V2. Alright, so first thing we'll do, let's make a logo of the box that's right here. So to do that, we're going to take our quad. We're going to grab our material. I'm actually going to select our bug image because it'll work nicely. I'm going to scale that down until we're happy. Pull this over here. Now, I'm going to rename this. Always keep your stuff in order. Name it logo. I'll take this quad right here. Scale it around. Take our box here. Make it a little bigger. Alright. So, I'm actually going to make a new material. So, let's call this green grass. I'm actually going to take a color here, do green. I'm going to add a gradient instead, actually. Take it green. I'm going to play around just a little bit till I find something I like. Alright, so now we have a gradient you can see in our cube right here. I'm actually going to add a texture to this as well. A texture can be any image file. So I'm going to grab our grass texture file here. I'm going to go to the alpha blending. We'll change this to mix. We'll change that to about 10%. Keep it real low. Alright, I'm hit OK. So now we have our green grass layer here. I'm going to go and rename this BG box. Double click our green glass layer. And you'll notice it's taken on the sizing and scale of the texture. So we just need to grab that, scale that back down, readjust, and there we go, we're back on track. Alright, so now if you'll notice we've shifted off our little title safe line here. So I'm just going to show you a little trick. We'll go press this button right here, we'll say new group. I'm going to call this the master group. All right, so if I move this box and then move this box, but I like the way it's assigned up, but I want to change all this over just a little bit. I'm actually going to take this master group, put it below our light. I'm going to take our logo in our box right here. I'm going to drag it into our master group. And now if I turn the visibility off of that group, it affects everything that's in the children layer of this. So I'm going to grab this master, take our move tool, and move everything in sync right there, right on that line. Let's add some text. This is going to be our headline. I'm going to go ahead and grab this over here, but I don't like the black there. So since I have this file here, we got our font from last time, go to edit material. Now you'll notice something pop up right here. It says this font is shared in multiple scenes in the Xpresssion project, and it's going to ask you if you really want to change that. So just to show you what it does so you know what's going wrong here, I'm going to hit yes. So we're actually going to take this to white, hit enter. All right, so that's what I want in this one. But if you'll notice, if we want to go back over here to our first lower third, this is now going to change to white, but we actually want to keep this on black. The reason is, it's because this lower third and this lower third are pulling from the same exact font cube. So in order to change this, what I recommend, I'm going to change this back to black to keep our lower third nice and happy. I'm going to go to our other third and change it back to black as well. I'm going to go select our text here. I'm going to put it in the master section for now. Rename it to headline. I'm going to go ahead and select new. We're going to make a new font. This is going to be lower third head V2. Alright, so let's select our nice font here. We're going to Control A to select all, double click, and now this new font's been applied, and we can change this one completely independently of the first lower third. Alright, so I'm going to change our headline here. I'm going to knock down that size just a little bit. Alright, so now we're happy with that. I'm actually going to make a subline, so another drop down. I'm going to press copy paste. Renaming this to subline. And since it's actually the same thing, I'm actually going to drag that down. It's going to be our subline. I'm actually going to change this font to something else. But you'll see, since we're in our same layer, it changes the headline too. So I'm going to undo that. Change that back to where we had it. So for this one, we're going to make a new font. This is going to be lower third sub version 2. And right now we can select this subline, double click it, and now we can change this to anything we want in here, and it completely independently works from this one. Retype subline there. Alright, now we have a little bit better looking lower third. But I'm actually going to make this pop just a little bit more. So I'm going to take our background box here, go to Object Inspector, I'm going to go to Effects. So our effects here are loaded in our sidebar. These are all kind of different filters and effects we can use to add little things to our assets here. I'm going to grab just a quick drop shadow right here. I'm going to right click, press Properties, and we can adjust how big it is, the size of it. I'm just going to knock it down to about 80. Change the softness up a little bit. Change the opacity down. And look, it's made a nice little shadow for us right here. What you'll see though, our box has shifted layers around and it's now in front of our bug layer, which looks pretty bad. So I'm going to go to our Object Manager here. And I'm going to change the layer mode around. So now our bug's back on top. Alright, so I like this, but I think it's a little big. So, since all our text and all our boxes and all our assets are in the master folder, or the master group I should say, we can actually change all this all at once. Scooch it in and pull it over. So now what we can do is take this to our sequencer. It's in our version 2 folder right here. Frame buffer 1, we'll double click it, and there she is. We can change the text here as much as we want to, and it updates once we take it online. Alright, so another step further, we're going to take this. Let's keep typing here. So we have someone with a really long name for some reason. If you'll notice, this string of text has gone completely off the side of our rectangle on Xpression. So there's one way to fix it, just simply have a smaller name. That doesn't always work. So there's different ways we can change the expression that can actually tell that this is the edge of the box. So I'm going to go into our lower third here, Control E. So I'm actually going to our headline. I'm going to just type in letters until it reaches the end of our box here. All right, so let's say that's the edge of our rectangle right there. We really don't ever want text to go that far. So since with our headline selected, I'm going to go ahead and say tabs and options in our inspector. I'm going to enable something called an auto squeeze. Essentially what that does is it will scale the edges of the text here and it'll push everything together to fit inside that box no matter what's typed in there. So right now it's set to 400 pixels. I'm going to set it to current, which will grab whatever this red box is. I'm going to hit enable. So it's not going to do anything yet, but if you'll notice, I'm going to type in just a few extra letters. You'll notice the scale is changing to fit everything inside that box no matter how many letters I have. So this is the way you can keep your long names and your short names from never going above your lower third, or never going on the edge of your lower third. We can do the same thing with a subline as well. So set to current and auto squeeze. So if we go to our sequencer, let's make a duplicate of this, just one. Let's say this one is John Smith. And let's say maybe his occupation, he's a baker. Alright, so now we have John Smith, he's a baker there. We got a frame buffer 2. Let's lower the lower third. Now, let's say we have someone with a ridiculously long name, another ridiculously long occupation. I'm just going to preview for it right there. So I'm going to take this online on channel 2. But you'll notice it hasn't gone past our lower third rectangle area. And this is the way we can keep the same graphical look, making sure nothing goes over the edge without having to change fonts or rescale anything. Alright, so let's add one more step to this and make it a little more professional. So when we take this online, it simply just cuts on and off. But what we can do in Xpression, since it's so powerful, we can actually do animations for this graphic. So let's go over here back in our scene layout. We're going to actually duplicate this scene. We're going to call this V3 right here. It's already picked up on that. So what we're going to do is actually use what we call keyframes. And we're actually going to tell this graphic to come in and come out and do different things in certain times. So I'm going to turn it on my master. I'm going to go ahead and take our logo here. And if you'll notice, this whole time there's been this timeline right here. And what this is a timeline of the entire duration of this scene file. So right now we have a window of 100 frames set up. And what we can actually do is set up different keyframes on this timeline and it performs different actions and different attribute changes during certain points of time. So I'm actually going to have this bug come in from out of frame, come in, and then we're going to have this box fade in. Alright, so just a little pre-work here. I'm going to set up a new group. This group is going to be called box. We're going to put everything but the logo inside that box. So we actually have two groups inside the group. So the master still controls everything, but this box layer now just controls the background and the subline and headline. So we can control that down now. So in order to access our keyframe system, we're going to go to animation down here, key graph editor. This will let us see what's going on with our keyframes. So I'm going to look at our logo, and I can see all the attributes that are available: position, rotation, scale, all this good stuff. To add a keyframe, I'll simply select my logo layer. So at 12 frames, I actually want this to land right here. So I'm going to keep this right here. Press key. Red means it's not going to do anything. Green is what you want selected. So at 12 frames of position, I'm going to want this logo to be right here, no matter what. I'm going to do that, press set and close. And you'll notice this logo has gotten bold with the positions of XYZ values selected. And right there we can see there's our little line pop up right there. So we're happy there. I'm going to go back to 0 because this animation is going to start off a frame. I'm going to drag our bug off just as out of screen. Press key again. Position still selected. I'll press set and close. So now if I take our playhead here you can see our graphic is changing between this position and this position. So that's our y-axis. You can see it's ramping up between the 2 points, between frame 0 and frame 12. And we can actually, in our key graph editor, change the value of these, delete them, and all this good stuff. I'm actually going to change the spine, make it more of a curved ramped motion instead of a linear. Alright, that looks pretty good. So now I have one part of our animation set up. So I'm going to go to our box section. We're going to just have to simply do a fade on, fade off. So we'll do this with the alpha channel. So we'll go to our 12 right here. We'll go to our key. We'll turn off position, off rotation, and off scale. We don't need any of that. We just need our alpha. And right now we're going to do 12 frames. Actually, let's move it ahead to 25 frames. Second close. We're going to go to our starting point, which will be 12 frames. So as soon as our bug comes in, this is going to start to fade on. So at 12 frames, we're going to start in 0. Type in 0 there. And our alpha. Select key. Set and close. So now, if we open up our box layer, we can see our alpha. It's bold right there. And here's our keyframes. I'll change this one to spline as well. Gives a little more of a natural characteristic. Alright, so now we see that. From 12 to 25, we have a simple fade on of our box group. So now, if we play this from the beginning, our bug pops in, and then our box fades in shortly after. So now, we'll jump into our sequencer. We'll add our lower third V3. Take everything offline. And as soon as I trigger this, it's going to trigger the animations as well. And see, it pops up there, nice and easy. Alright, so that's pretty cool. And then we can use this just like another template. Change whatever parameters we want to. And it'll animate every time we change, no matter what. Alright, so you notice it animates on, but it doesn't animate off in the same fashion. I'll show you the kind of the quick trick, the way to do this. Go back into our scene layout. We'll duplicate this again just to keep everything clean. Version 4 here. I'm actually going to open a scene director. Double click there. Now this can get a little complicated, but to keep it simple, what we're going to do, this is our track, this is our animation controller. So this is essentially the layer in the timeline that has all our keyframes in it. So what we can do is simply just add a clip here. We're going to go to event, we're going to say pause. At keyframe number 25, there's no more new animations going on for the entire duration of this clip. So what we can do is add a pause value there, and it'll automatically pause the clip there no matter what. Likewise, we can add a reverse cue. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and send this to sequencer. And this will make a little more sense of what this is doing. I'm going to clear out, so we have version 4 load up. So when I trigger this, it'll animate on like usual, but now you'll see it's actually paused, and it's actually paused here at this specific time code. And now when I advance it again, you'll see it actually reverses it. Alright, so let's kind of see all this put together. So we're going to take down our thumbnail a little bit. We'll open up our version 1 group. Go ahead and say we're going to add our bug in there. We're going to add our full screen graphic on channel 2, and then we're going to bring in our new animated lower third on channel 1. Alright guys, so I know this is kind of a super simple project, but this is kind of how you get started doing things for news and talk shows. Alright, so now we've got this awesome project built up. You're probably going to want to save it. And just a quick tip before we head out. If you ever want to transfer things between computers, what you can do is actually do what Xpresssion calls a package. So go to File, your save's right there. I recommend doing that often. You can do an incremented save, which will save it as whatever your project name is, and then version 1, version 2, version 3. I highly recommend that just because Xpresssion sometimes can accidentally corrupt files, so you should have different versions to go to. So if you want to transfer this to a computer, we can do what we call an export package. And you'll select your destination right there. What you'll do is have file inclusions. You'll include your font files. You can set a password if you want to. And then when you press export here, it's going to make a little package file that contains, it'll transfer anything that Xpresssion file is built into the new computer and link everything automatically. It's the cleanest way to transfer things in between graphic systems. Alright guys, so I hope this helps you get you started in Xpression graphics. We'll be checking out data link a little bit more in the next section, a little more automation tools to make Xpression really fly and really fast.